Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. So today we have with us two very special people. So one is Chagnik, who is living in Europe and who has his own startup, and we have with us Santo, who is living in USA for about 7 to 8 years, and Chagnik is living in Europe for around the same time, and I have been living in Canada for around 6 years. So in this session today, we'll talk about the various challenges that people face when they move to another foreign country. There can be a lot of barriers, a lot of things that we have to adapt to. So let's welcome these two people and understand what challenges they face when they move to a country and how they adapted to it basically. So let's start with Shagnik. Shagnik, welcome to the podcast. And so yeah, if you can say something about the challenges you faced when you first moved to Europe. I think you first moved to France, right?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, when it comes to mainland Europe, the biggest challenge is definitely the language because Europe in general is a non-English speaking continent,
Right.
with the exception of the UK, which is not so much in Europe anymore. Um, and yeah, the language is definitely a big deal. And the other thing is, of course, uh, like no, you need to know how to live with yourself because especially for us Indians, we're very community based. Like we depend a lot on our families and everything, and then you come here and then you have to know how to look after yourself like individually. So that's definitely a big factor. So these are the two things I would say are very important.
Yeah, definitely, and I can understand the language barrier, right? To learn new foreign language is a pretty difficult job. So I remember, during my undergrad, I started learning Spanish, but within a few weeks, I started to understand how difficult it is to, just it's not about learning the language, right? Understanding the accent of people, right?
No.
And that to communicate, because I know Spanish, from what I understood is people communicate very fast. So even if you know the language, it's very hard to grasp what people are saying. So I can understand the challenges that you might have faced. And what did you do to overcome those, if you
Well,
can
for
say?
me, I think my circumstances kind of forced me. If when I say forced, I don't mean like it was deliberate, but it was something I wanted to do as well. But it definitely pushed me towards that direction. And my circumstance was that I had to study in French. So my exams, my presentations, all my assignments at some point were going to be in French. So in France, then I have to learn French. I had 1 year to learn it, and I would just say like for me, I had courses, so I definitely was going into that, and I had some courses before as well. But I think the most important thing that really helped me to learn the language was more like using it, like going out there and really pushing yourself, really getting out of that comfort zone that you usually build around yourself with
Right.
terms of language, and then putting yourself out there. And yeah, it there are some embarrassing scenes that can happen, some misunderstandings that can happen, but then later on you just laugh about it when that happens, and everybody thinks it's funny because everybody understands more or less how difficult it is to learn the language. So
Yeah.
yeah, as in like just like I would say, don't be afraid. If you really want to learn it, you will learn it. It just takes a while, and it is a very well recognized challenge, but it's a challenge you can overcome. Yeah.
I totally understand. So like basically you were thrown at the deep end of the pool, and you basically you know managed to get out of it, right? And that
Completely.
you
For me,
had to
it's
learn
like I
language,
wouldn't
yeah.
get my master's degree if I didn't do anything in French. So I'm like, okay, I have to learn it now. Otherwise, there's a lot at stake. So yeah, definitely.
Right, right, right. So let's move to Sayanta and hear his experience of moving to United States. So, Sayanta, what do you
So,
think about this?
yeah, so I think that's a very good question that you asked. And because if somebody asks me, like, what are the two, three skills that he or she needs to learn before moving to the United States, specifically to the United States, I would say number one is he or she should know driving. Number two is cooking. Because the reason I say driving here, because in Europe, I think the public transport is much better than in US. In US, it's not, except few big cities like maybe San Francisco, New York, Washington D.C. The public transportation subway system networks, you cannot rely too much on that. So basically, you need to know driving. So it's a very good idea to learn it in your home country where it's less expensive, so you can learn in a more safer way, right? You can practice more, and then you come to here. So driving is number one skill that I think is very needed. cooking. To survive, you need to know cooking, especially the boys. They generally, because I faced it,
Yeah.
I did not know a lot of cooking before I came here, and I had to face it. I had to face that hard situation where I just don't know how to make the food, and you have to learn through it. That's enough, because there are a set of challenges anyway you will face. Let it be the studies, your academics. You need to find an internship, finances. You don't want some extra challenges upon you that you don't know how to even cook and feed yourself.
Yeah.
That's an extra challenge. You cannot go from one place to another place because you don't even know driving. So those are extra challenges. You will try to avoid it. That's the best. These are the two essential skills I think one should absolutely learn before they move to United States.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to it, Santo, because when I moved to Canada, that point I I knew driving, so that was kind of helped me out, but I didn't know cooking at all. So and I was also thrown at the deep end of the pool, and I had to figure stuffs out. First few weeks I survived on pizzas and all those fast food, and then eventually I had to start cooking. I went on YouTube, started learning. Calculating the quantity of spices was the first thing I remember. When people said 1 teaspoon of spice, I would exactly measure 1 teaspoon and put it. So
Yes.
yeah, so it's pretty funny now, but it was kind of a challenge that time. But yeah, definitely those are the things that pretty much a challenge to people when they are moving abroad. Something that I would like to add to it, since I'm also living in Canada for a while, to be able to live by yourself, because when you're coming from India, like all of us are from India. India is a very populated country, right? So you will find people everywhere, and if anything you do, you can always find a company, someone with you who can help you out, or someone who can just accompany you, wherever you go, right? So here you will not find a lot of that, right? And so you have to another one thing you have to understand is, or you have to kind of get accustomed, is to live by yourself, to be happy, just on your own, to be able to spend quality time just with yourself. So that is something that you kind of adapt to, but you have to be good at it at some point, otherwise you'll not feel very good, right, living abroad. I would also say another thing is to manage your finances, because this is something we were never trained, and I think that is something that needs to change in this world, is to kind of give some training about personal finances, because it is difficult, because I've seen many people making wrong decisions, right? And I have myself made pretty much wrong decisions too. But you learn from your experience, right? But basically managing the finances, your investing money here and all that. So that's another something that you can kind of get adapt to, and something that's very, very important, right? Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
So I would like to, a very good point that you guys mentioned, both you and Shagnik. But I would like to mention one more challenge that I faced here, apart from driving and cooking. So that is, I would recommend people to at least watch 10 web series in English because of the accent. Trust me, I did face that problem when I first moved to United States. The first it happened with me. I'm just sharing the experience. When I actually landed at the airport, the security person who was standing there, I asked him how to go to the domestic airport, basically. He spoke to me something. I literally, the first time he spoke to me, I did not even understand what I was confirming whether he was speaking in English or in some other language. I did not understand that he was speaking in English because of that different accent. I always thought that I can understand it, I don't need to watch anything. But I would recommend that people watch like at least 10 to 15 web series before moving to the country, so that they can kind of have a grasp of the language that they will expect out of here. And one another thing which I also I faced it, you when you speak to a person of, let's say, United States, because Indians tend to speak very fast, you also have to slow it down a little bit so that they can understand what you are saying. Because it used to happen to me when I came to here, after, like, let's say, after a week or so, I started understanding their accent, I started getting it. But then when I say something, they do not understand me. Then somebody, actually, I learned it in the hard way, like in an interview. Like, I was having a phone interview, and the HR told me, let me give you a recommendation. Let me tell you something. You need to slow it down a little bit. Just take it as a recommendation. Later I got Like after another year, I got into the same company, but I was rejected at that interview, basically because they did not understand what I was saying, because I was saying it so fast. And this one, another American, he was a very good friend of me, told me I was having a hard time understanding him initially, and I was open with him also, because he was very frank. So I was able to tell him that I'm not getting you what you are saying. Can you please slow it down? So he used to slow it down deliberately a little bit in the initial stages for me, and then he used to tell me the same way that you are not understanding me because I am speaking fast. I am also not understanding you because you are speaking fast. He also told me. So you also need to slow it down a bit. So when I was at the research RA lab, he was my lab mate, and we both became very good friends. So that I actually learned it, that if somebody doesn't understand, just understand this, because you are speaking fast. Maybe you have to slow it down a little bit. Just
Right.
speak, don't rush.
Yeah.
Speak little slowly. So these two things, I think, you have to work on. You have to learn the other accent, and you have to slow it down a little bit. This
Yeah.
There are two
Awesome.
things.
If I may add, actually,
Yeah. Sure.
that works even more on the European context because at least Chanto, you're in the US where people are native English speakers,
Mhm.
but here in Europe they're not native English speakers, so you need to slow down even more for that. Rather, I would say like even make a version of English for yourself that is much more compatible because again the vocabulary you have to be careful on that. Not everybody is very good at that. I think we're one of the few people where we learn vocabulary in such an intense way. And I get this idea that in India, people tend to measure their level of language based on the vocabulary. Where
Right.
then you go to the English speaking world and you realize half of the words that we learned, like in the GRE and stuff, are not really used all the time. So it's kind of
Exactly.
a waste. But I mean, that's for exam purposes. But when you're out there speaking English, use very basic and very like easiest way to communicate, like develop a method for that. No need to use crazy words, no need to use crazy speed and everything. Just go smooth, go easy, people understand you. That's the most important thing, and
Yeah.
that's how you build relations in general.
Very,
Exactly.
very
Yeah.
important topic, that important point that you mentioned, Chagnik, that that the objective is not showing off how much vocabulary the objective of any language is to communicate, and you can communicate using simple words, and I think that works the best.
Yeah.
And talking slowly. So as Shanta was also saying, and since we all both Shanta and I came to an English speaking country, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we were able to understand the accent from the very
Mhm.
beginning, right? So even that was a language barrier, and you have to kind of adapt to it. And watching series or English movies are very helpful. At least it helped me a lot. So I'm actually a movie buff. I used to watch a lot of English movies, a lot of English TV series. So for me it was a little bit easier to understand their accent. But to to form a version of English, as Sagnik was saying, so that everybody is comfortable understanding you, so that is also pretty important. So yeah, some pretty interesting points you guys mentioned.
I just
Sagnik, go
have
ahead.
one
Yeah.
more point to say on
Yeah.
this. I think this is something that not a lot of people talk about, and I think it's very, very important, especially for us. Okay, we come from a tropical country, a hot country, and the weather is very different. I think that people need to be prepared for the weather of the
Definitely.
northern part. In Europe, like winters can last. I think Canada, same story. Winters can
Mhm.
last like 6 months. You have 6 months almost without seeing the sun, and that
Right.
is very like that has a serious impact on the psychology of people, especially if you're coming from a country like India.
Right.
So be ready for that. You might not see the sun. It depends, of course, where exactly you're in, but you might not see the sun for quite some time, and then you might see the sun a little bit too much,
Yeah.
and I think, and the weather, the climate, like that often affects a lot of people, and our moods and our emotions are also driven by that. Not a lot of people think about this. So I would definitely say like you will start missing home for like, especially if you have these cold winters, like dark winters and stuff. It's very easy to become very depressed, and especially if you're very homesick, that's usually the time. So take care of that, stay in touch with your family and everything, of course, that most people do anyways, but also like keep something around you that can remind you of home, that could give you comfort, because trust me, you do not want to underestimate this part. It really can
Yeah.
get people, and I know people who have even left. They couldn't stand the winters anymore, they couldn't stand all of this
Yeah.
anymore, and it's sad, but it is true.
Yeah, very true. And thank you, Shagnik, for bringing that point out. I'm just some like anecdotal story I'm going to say. So when I was moving to Canada, I was pretty excited about the snowfall. Right, I thought, oh wow, winter is so beautiful. It will be covered with snow and all that. And when I so I came in fall, and I was talking to the locals here that I'm very excited about winters, and everybody was looking at me a little
Yeah,
different. Like, what is this guy talking about, right?
yeah,
So and eventually when when winter came, kind of understood how difficult it is to kind of as you said, it becomes depressing. You can't go out a lot, you can't do those outdoor activities which you can do a lot in summer. So yeah, that's pretty important. And the mental health aspect as well. So you have to stay close to your family, your friends, so that you don't go get too much depressed. But luckily winter doesn't last 6 months in Canada, but sometimes four and a half months it is there. And winters are of course much
yeah.
less activities
I think I
to
might
go.
have exaggerated 6 months part. Unless you're in Scandinavia or something like that, you probably won't face that too much here. But like the idea is like the winter is very harsh here,
Very
like
harsh,
for
yes.
us especially, you know.
And you have to adapt to it, right? Again, like deep end of the pool, you swim out of it, right? So
May I
yeah,
ask you guys a question
yeah.
in this regard? There's another thing that's in Europe, at least, especially in places like Germany or in the Netherlands. It's the way people talk. I don't know how it is in Canada or in the US, but people in that part of the world tend to be very straightforward, a bit too straightforward for our comfort. We tend to be a little bit, mellow. And I know a lot of people have problems with that because, like for example, in Germany, people say exactly what they think.
Okay.
And if they don't like something about you, they'll tell you straight on your face that you won't like it. And then the Dutch are even crazier on that end, you know. And this is something that I've seen here, and I want to say something about that and how to deal with that. I know how it is. I want to know what it's like in the U.S. or in Canada. Like, do you face this straightforward uh, strangeness? Actually, I would say like the
So,
straightforwardness of the people. Is that something that you guys have faced before? And if
so
so, how?
US, right,
Sand the
right.
ground, yeah.
Yeah, so what I would say, I can say about the US perspective, because I haven't been to Canada, so I don't know that. But from US, I wouldn't say it is there, because they are pretty much sensitive about how you feel. I have seen little more sensitive than even, let's say, Indian people. Like they will kind
Hmm.
of, if they will, until and unless it's about business or something related to, but if it's about something personal, they will, if they, but still if they want to say, and he is like a little bit friend, he will kind of put it as just a friend saying to a friend, I would think you, if you do this just for your benefit, he can say like that. But I haven't seen somebody, even so I can understand he didn't like it, but that's why he said it, but still he put it in a way that so that I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So
So you
that's how
sugarcoated
I
it a
would
little
say.
bit, I would
Yeah,
say, you know,
yeah.
like okay.
So, what Sayanta said, Canada is, like 10 times more, polite on this
Hmm.
aspect, right? So we sugarcoat everything,
Hmm.
If you want to say something which is a little bit unpleasant to someone, so here what people do is they will say, uh, two or three good things about you, then they will kind of insert the thing that is a little bit unpleasant, and then end with one or two good things, so that they keep a lot of that in mind. So here people are extremely polite, and sometimes you have to learn that too, right? I think you guys probably have heard the Canadians saying sorry on everything and saying
Hmm.
please everywhere. So that's pretty much true actually. And yeah, so a little bit different from Europe, as we are hearing,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's about it in
I
this part of the
think
world.
the reason why I ask is because this is some people have told me that the straightforwardness, like we are very sensitive, so the straightforwardness really affects us. And a lot of people, like when they're working in a job and their boss tells them, like they'll straight off tell you that what you're doing is terrible, like it's like that, and then we take it very seriously, very personally, and then we start, we basically go down the rabbit hole like that. And what I would say is that if you are in that situation and you know that there are people out there who will be very straightforward, understand that they're not doing this to hurt you or to kind of like put you down. Actually, it's the most normal way of communication here. And in fact, you can take it even as an opportunity to benefit from it, because you will be able to know the problems that you have, and then you can work with it, and then they will tell you okay, we have this problem, and then you fix it. It's like that. So I mean, that's what I would want to give an advice to. If anybody goes for a job in Germany, or in the Netherlands, or some of the more straightforward countries, be prepared for this. Be prepared to get the criticism and all that stuff, but do not take it personally. Just go as it is, and then you will actually start to appreciate it. Believe me, because I know I'm really appreciating this right now. It's much easier to work with people like that, actually, because you know exactly what they're thinking. There's no sugarcoating, there's no beating around the bush. It's
Right, right.
dap snap, straight
Yeah.
to the point. So
So
it's just something that I wanted to mention as well.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that insight. And and as you said, sometimes if you sugarcoat it too much, you don't understand what they're saying.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
he praising me? Is he saying something bad about me? What's going on, right? But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think like initially you may feel a little bit bad about it, but I think that like in the long run, this could be very helpful, right? Especially to work on yourself, right? Sometimes you need to do that, right?
Yeah.
And I think not sometimes, like I think most of the times you need to do that to adapt yourself. Sorry,
You
go
can
ahead.
get an honest opinion about something. Yeah, that's very easy to do that. Yeah, just you have to be ready to take it.
Definitely,
So,
definitely. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Sayanta, you want to add anything to this?
No, I think we covered a lot of good points today, like with three different perspectives. Me from US, Soham from Canada, and Sagnik actually not only Europe, he has traveled the kind of the world because he's the son of a diplomat who works for his father used to work for the Ministry Government of India, Ministry of External Affairs. So yeah, that's a great point that I think we are discussing. So I think yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Shantu and Shagnik, for joining us today. I'm sure a lot of people will benefit out of it. And also Shagnik has graciously agreed to be with us on a couple of other podcasts, sharing his interesting journey as a co-founder in one of the profitable startup in Europe, in a non-English speaking country in Europe. So that would be an exciting journey. So to tune in with us for next week to know about his journey, about entrepreneurship and working as a founder in Europe. And also the subsequent week, he will be doing another podcast with us, which also he so graciously agreed to talk about the how to do a master's in Europe. So again, thank you so much, Shagnik, for helping us out on this. And yeah, that's yeah, thanks.
my pleasure.
Thank you, Shagnik, from my part too. Like it's a great that you have given us so much time, like to our channel, like because I'm sure many viewers have these kind of questions, which only people who have like with people who have from your background can answer, right? Like you have started a company, you have been in Europe and different countries for like 6 7 years, and basically you've grown up also like that, right? In
Yeah.
different countries. So yeah, thank you again. Thank you so much for being in our channel.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here and share experiences and exchange. Like it's really cool. Looking forward to it.
Joining us today. Pretty insightful, information we got from your journey and what you guys faced abroad. So yeah, I hope this helps our viewers a lot, especially people who are planning to move abroad and are only looking at the beautiful aspects of it and not at the challenges. So something that they can prepare for. So yeah, and for the viewers, if you like this video, please like this and share it with your friends who might benefit out of it. And for other viewers who like this content, please subscribe to it, and we'll see you guys again in our next video. Thank you again. Bye bye.
Subscribe, people. That's how we will grow our community and we can give more value to you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
rest
you.
of the day. Thank you, Sagnik.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.